In an age when those of hair lip and deep pockets advocate a feline holocaust, our next speaker should be of huge interest. John Innes is a 30-year veteran of wildlife management and currently holds down a scientific position at Landcare Research, an advocate of native flora and fauna and the containment of exotic pests. It remains to be seen how much he is in the Gareth Morgan camp. Hold on to your cats, John Innes.
Thank you. Hello. Some of you may be disappointed that I'm not wearing a tie or a lab coat. Or perhaps I don't even have a big bushy beard, or even much hair, really. However, I've decided to wear socks with sandals. So you can be confidently assured that everything I tell you tonight is from a real scientist and therefore entirely true. This talk hopes a significant proportion of Hamiltonians are keen to have more interesting native animals in this city, where once upon a time these species used to live, of course. And these folks turned out to watch the release of bellbirds into Te Parapara here in the gardens in May 2010. We've counted birds in Hamilton since 2004. I think there might be 4 of these, kiddaroo, in the city. There's maybe 6. We haven't got very many. Our commonest birds are house sparrows, blackbirds, starlings and goldfinches. Our commonest natives are silver-eyes, fantails and grey warblers. We'd like more kiddaroo, bellbirds and tui. Why aren't there more of these birds in the city? Well, we know the answer for tui because in the last 4 years we've proved that we can make more of them. Yes. This is thanks to decades of planting of tui food trees by the council and many citizens, maybe including you. To a decade of research that showed that tui were getting eaten at their nests in native forests around Hamilton, and in the last 4 years to pest control by Waikato Regional Council. They targeted these 2 animals, neither of which are cats, in 5 native forests up to 20 kilometres away from the city, where we discovered our tui were actually nesting. This nest belongs to a song thrush. It's an amazing shot of a possum and a shiprat simultaneously eating live song thrush chicks, as they do. Well, a possum and a what? Well, shiprats arrived about 150 years ago, the 3rd rat to establish and now the most widespread. They come in 3 coat colours, which is confusing and not very important. They eat all sorts of things. And they are superb climbers, both of which are important. And because they climb so well, the world knows this animal as a roof rat. We've got 2 kinds of rat in Hamilton, shiprats and Norway rats. Shiprats are smaller, they have longer tails and bigger ears, and my friends can't tell them apart. I ask them, was the tail longer than the body? Would the ears, when bent forward, cover the eyes? How many nipples did it have? And they say to me, it was huge and disgusting, and you are really weird. Shiprats are widespread and abundant in all our native forests. Widespread and luckily not very abundant in Hamilton. There's literally nowhere a bird can put a nest that this animal cannot reach. They eat eggs and chicks and also sitting adults like this fantail, if the bird sits there and lets itself be caught, of course. Well, that's what happens. The keep still and hope defence evolved by our birds against predation worked well when the predators were moorporks and laughing owls and adsbills and falcons that hunted by sight, but they do not work against possums and rats and stoats that hunt by scent at night. So what other mammal pests have we got in Hamilton? Well, there's heaps of these. Hedgehogs are pretty cute to us, not just skinks and weta that they eat, as well as the slugs and snails we think they feed on. Hedgehogs are important predators of eggs of ground-nesting birds in places that still have any, like skylarks and pipits and pasture land, dotterels and other waders and riverbeds and on our beaches. And here's our 3 mustelids. From the top, the ferret, the stoat and the weasel. There's not many of these in the city, actually, which gives us a real advantage over your average national park, and telling them apart is easy. Ferrets stand up, while stoats and weasels lie down. If it's got a black tip on its tail and a biro on its head, then it's a stoat, and if not, then it's a weasel. Well, there's squillions of these, too many for Gareth. There might be 21,000 domestic cats in Hamilton, and this cat has been caught red-pawed raiding a bird's nest. It is, I'm afraid, undeniable that cats eat some birds, including native ones, although most of the birds they eat are common and widespread sorts, like blackbirds, thrushes and sparrows. And further, in cats' defence, they eat lots of shiprats. Remember shiprats? No one sees the birds the rats kill. If cats alone were somehow removed or kept indoors without also removing shiprats, then it's not knowing whether there'd be any net gain for native wildlife. This research just hasn't been done. Gareth agrees that cats eat rats and that rats are bad. What you have to do, he says, is replace your cat with a rat trap. So here is a picturesque domestic scene with one of the most delightful things to do with a cat, which is to go gardening, or in this case, dig elephant ear out of the gully. And if you've done this, you'll know that the cat is definitely the most fun thing about digging out elephant ear. Now, here's the same charming, homely scene with the cat replaced by a rat trap. What do you think? Doesn't have the same thing for me. But the traps are cheaper to feed, they got no fleas, they make no unwelcome deposits except for dead rats, of course. I've stroked lots of traps and they never purr. But would you trade the company of your cat for, say, the company of bellbirds or even saddlebacks? And I suspect that options for restoring species like this to all cities, including ours, are slowly widening. If rats, possums, hedgehogs, and yes, cats were all at low abundance in Hamilton, could saddlebacks survive in this city? Well, perhaps, I don't know. Maybe. Birds are not the only possible gain. These beautiful lizards and Duversel's geckos, our largest remaining species, thought extinct on the mainland since 1920, but recently dramatically rediscovered on Maungatautari. There's now more than 100 native lizard species in New Zealand. They're extraordinarily beautiful. It's rare to see any at all anywhere except for common skinks. And where would wildlife live? Hamilton's got less than 20 hectares of original high-quality ecosystems remaining. Well, Waiwhakareki, next to Brymer Road by the zoo, will add 50 hectares of pest-free forest in the coming decades, and there's 750 hectares of gullies, maybe a quarter of those under active restoration of some kind, and then there's your backyard. Some species, like this falcon or kaka, kereroo, bellbirds, whiteheads, they're already here or near. They might be visitors, so they'll get here by themselves. And others, like saddlebacks and Duversel's geckos, we're going to have to translocate them in. So I think, in the words of that famous New Zealander that we associate with Kiwi saving, Rachel Hunter, patron of the Forest Life Force Restoration Trust. Well, you know what she said. She said, it may not happen overnight, but it will happen. Good night.
What a phenomenally funny gentleman. How relieved I am that he's not on the scientific side of the great debate featured at this very arts festival this coming Sunday. Please come along. It's free. And they're not going to win.